So today our topic is about the air pollution. So air pollution refers to the presence of harmful substances in the atmosphere that can affect the human health, animals, plants and the environment. These pollutants are either directly released, for example, primary nutrients, or form in the atmosphere such as the secondary nutrients. So air pollution is the silent killer in the environment. This diagram shows that the air pollution can affect the clean air that is necessary for our health. So the primary air pollutants are basically primary pollutants are those pollutants that are directly emitted into the atmosphere from a source. For example, carbon monoxide from car exhaust, sulfur dioxide from burning coal and oils, nitrogen oxides from vehicle and factories, particulate matters from constructive sites and the burning, and volatile organic compounds from paints and fuels. Secondary pollutants are those that are not emitted directly, they are formed in the atmosphere through chemical reactions between primary pollutants and natural elements like the sunlight, water vapors, and oxygen. The examples of the secondary pollutants are, for example, ozone formed when nitrous oxide and volatile organic compound react in the sunlight. Smoke is formed when a mixture of ozone and particular matters mostly in the cities. So, what is the urbanization? Basically, urbanization and industrialization have significantly improved the economic growth and infrastructure development. However, these advancements often come to the cost of the environmental degradation, particularly in air quality. So, urban areas characterized by high population density, traffic congestion, and industrial activity are major contributors to the air pollution. So, this explored the link between the urban air quality and respiratory health, examining pollutants of concern, health impact, vulnerable population, and potential mitigation strategies. So, there are the major urban air pollutants and their sources. For example, urban air pollution consists of a complex mixture of gases and particulate matter. For example, particulate matters are the tiny particles from vehicle exhaust, construction site, industrial emissions, and dust. Secondly, they also penetrate deep into the lungs and the bloodstream. Secondly, nitrogen oxides primarily from the vehicle emissions and power plants contributing to the smoke and respiratory irritation. Sulfur dioxide, it is basically emitted from the industrial processes and burning of fossil fuels containing the sulfur. Ozone, a secondary pollutant formed by the reactions between the nitrous oxide and volatile organic compound to the sun. So the ground level ozone is a key component of the smoke. Carbon monoxide basically produced by the incomplete combustion of the fuels, especially from the vehicles. Volatile organic compounds that are emitted from the vehicles, industrial solvents, and household products. So there are some impact of air pollution on respiratory health. For example, exposure to the polluted airs has been both short-term and long-term respiratory effect. The short-term effects is basically there is the irritation of the airways, coughing, and throat soreness. Exacerbations of asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease is another concept of the respiratory health. Increased susceptibility to the respiratory infections such as the bronchitis and the pneumonia. Long term effects, for example, development of chronic respiratory disease like the asthma, COPD, and the bronchitis, reduce the lung function growth in children, increase the risk of lung cancer due to the prolonged exposure to the carcinogens like the benzene and formaldehyde, accelerated aging of the lungs, and permanent damage of the airways. So there are some vulnerable populations. For example, certain groups are more susceptible to the adverse effect of poor air quality. For example, children's they having the developing lungs, higher breathing rates, and more time spent outdoors. Elderly which have the weakened respiratory and immune system, often with pre-existing condition. Individuals with pre-existing respiratory and cardiovascular conditions such as the asthma, COPD, or heart diseases. So the outdoor workers are also very susceptible, for example, including the traffic police, construction workers, and street vendors. Low income communities such as often residing near the industrial zone or high traffic area with limited access to the healthcare. So there is some mitigations in the intervention. For example, improving the urban air qualities require the coordinated effort and policy, community, and individual levels. Policy and government actions are that they strengthen and enforcing air quality standards and emissions regulations for industries and vehicles. In the main way, community and individual actions such as using masks or high pollution days, limiting outdoor activities during the peak pollution hours, educating for cleaner environment through community awareness programs, and adopting energy efficient practices at home and reducing the personal vehicle use. So this is all about the air pollutions and their impact on our daily life and the activities. Thank you so much.